You have watched this exact scene so many times it barely registers anymore. A bird drops into your bird bath, wings spread, water going everywhere, that frantic, almost reckless thrashing for 30 or 40 seconds, and then it hops out, perches on a nearby branch, and sits there for a few minutes, running its beak through its feathers before flying off. And your brain has already filed that away under bird taking a bath. Obviously, that's what bird baths are for. The bird was dirty, now it's clean, moving on. I thought the same thing for years. Most people do. But here's the thing. That assumption is not just a little off, it's actually completely wrong. What you've been watching at your bird bath has almost nothing to do with getting clean. The real reason birds bathe is about something far more urgent, far more interesting, and honestly, once you understand it, the whole scene changes. That splashing you've been watching for years, that's a bird running a maintenance check on the only piece of equipment standing between it and death. Today, we are going to go through exactly what is happening before, during, and after that splash. 5 things, and the last one is something researchers initially thought was a sign that something had gone wrong with the bird. It hadn't. It turns out to be one of the most precise and fascinating survival strategies documented in backyard birds anywhere. Let's get into it. So, if bathing isn't about dirt, what is it actually about? Feathers, specifically keeping them functional. And to understand why that matters so much, you need to know what a feather actually is. A feather is not a simple flat surface. Each one has a central stem, and from that stem, hundreds of tiny branches extend outward. Those branches have even smaller branches coming off them, and those microscopic branches interlock with each other like a zipper, thousands of tiny connections that hold the feather together into one smooth, continuous surface. That interlocking structure is everything. It is what makes a wing aerodynamic. It is what traps warm air against a bird's body on a cold night. It is what sheds rain. When those little connections are locked together properly, the feather works. When they pull apart, which happens constantly from normal daily activity, pushing through bushes, squeezing into nest holes, bumping against other birds at the feeder, the feather stops working properly. Bathing wets those feather structures, softens them, and makes it much easier for the bird to realign everything when it preens afterward. The water is not washing away grime, it is preparing the feathers to be reset. Research on feather mechanics in small songbirds confirmed that birds who bathed regularly before preening showed significantly better feather alignment than birds that only preened without bathing first. And this is not just about comfort. A cardinal with poorly maintained feathers burns more stored fat overnight to stay warm, and in winter, that cardinal has maybe 12 to 14 hours of fat reserves to get through the night. Anything that eats into that margin is a survival issue. The bath is not optional. It is maintenance on life support equipment. Here's the part that most people watching birds at a bird bath have never thought about, and once you see it, you will never be able to unsee it. While a bird is bathing, it cannot fly properly. Waterlogged feathers are heavier and disrupt the wing surface that generates lift. In the 60 to 90 seconds when a bird's feathers are fully soaked, its ability to escape a predator is genuinely compromised. Takeoff is slower, top speed drops. The tight, precise maneuvers that let small birds dodge through dense shrubs at full speed, gone temporarily. Studies on predator escape in small songbirds found measurably slower flight responses in wet birds. And the hawks that hunt songbirds in suburban yards, sharp-shinned hawks, Cooper's hawks, can detect, dive, and close on prey in under 2 seconds. A wet bird responding at reduced speed is a bird in real danger. Watch a bird at your bird bath next time and count how often it stops mid-splash to lift its head and scan the sky. Researchers found birds in areas with higher predator activity spent noticeably more time looking up and noticeably less time actually bathing. The bird is constantly running a risk calculation. Is it safer to keep going or to stop? And the most dangerous moment is not during the bath, it is after. Once the bird leaves the water, it moves to a branch, fluffs its feathers, and sits fairly still for minutes while it preens, damp, partially grounded, exposed. That's the window when a predator strike is most likely to succeed. This is why where you put your bird bath matters so much more than most people realize.
A bath placed in the open center of a lawn, far from any cover, is asking birds to perform a dangerous activity with no escape route. Cornell Lab of Ornithology recommends placing a bird bath within 10 feet of dense shrubs, close enough to reach cover fast, but not so close that a cat can hide directly underneath and ambush. Your placement is the one thing you can control for them.
Water bathing is not the only kind of bathing birds do, and the second type looks so strange that most people who see it have no idea what they're watching. On a dry summer afternoon, a group of house sparrows will find a patch of dry, bare dirt, a dusty hollow under a shrub, a scraped-out spot in a garden bed, and they will crouch down, spread their wings, and start flicking their bodies sideways, throwing loose soil up into their feathers and working it in deliberately, then shaking it back out. It looks almost exactly like water bathing, just in dirt, and it serves a completely different purpose. This is about parasites. Feather lice, tiny flat wingless insects, live inside the feather structure and feed on the barbules themselves. They're extremely common in wild birds, and a heavy infestation causes real feather damage, which, as we've already covered, has direct survival consequences. Feather mites cause similar problems at the base of feather shafts. Water does not kill feather lice. These insects have evolved specifically to hold on through water immersion. But fine, dry dust worked deep into the feather structure clogs the lice's respiratory pores and smothers them. It also physically dislodges their grip on the feather. Studies comparing lice counts in birds with regular access to dust bathing areas versus birds without access showed significantly lower parasite loads in the birds that could dust bathe. That bare patch of dry soil at the base of your rose bush, to a sparrow, that is a medical facility. If your garden is fully planted with no exposed soil anywhere, the birds using your feeders are managing their parasites somewhere else, or not managing them as well as they could be. A tidy, densely planted garden with no bare earth is cleaner looking, but functionally less supportive than it appears. You have definitely seen this part. The bird hops onto a branch after bathing and starts working its beak through its feathers, section by section, methodically for several minutes. You probably assumed it was just straightening things out, tidying. There is something else happening that most people never notice. At the base of most birds' tails, there is a small raised gland called the uropygial gland, commonly called the preen gland. When a bird preens after bathing, it presses its beak against this gland, picks up a small amount of waxy oil, and then works that oil across its feathers systematically, every section, every surface. That is why preening takes several minutes. The bird is coating its feathers, not just combing them. This oil does several things at once. It waterproofs the feather surface, it keeps feathers flexible so they do not crack or break under stress, and research published in Functional Ecology found that preen oil also carries antimicrobial properties. It actively inhibits the bacteria and fungi that colonize and break down feather structures from the inside. Bathing is what makes the oil application work properly. The water softens the feather surface and clears away the dried residue of old oil, so the fresh application penetrates evenly. Skip the bath, and the oil goes on unevenly. Skip the oil, and the feathers degrade faster. The whole sequence, splash, shake, perch, preen, is a single structured process. It's not a bath and then some tidying. It's a multi-step maintenance protocol that keeps feathers waterproof, aerodynamic, thermally efficient, and resistant to microbial damage, running daily, without fail, in the branch just above your bird bath. This last one is the behavior I mentioned at the start, the one that looked so strange when scientists first documented it that some of them genuinely wondered if the birds were malfunctioning. On a summer afternoon, you might see a robin or a blue jay do something that looks honestly a little alarming. The bird picks up a live ant, holds it in its beak, and then rubs it rapidly and deliberately across its wing feathers, then picks up another one and does the same thing, then another. Some birds will find an active ant colony, crouch directly over it, and spread their wings wide, letting the ants run freely through their feathers.
It looks bizarre. It looks like the bird has lost its mind. Some early researchers actually proposed it might be a pleasure behavior, the bird doing something that felt good with no practical purpose. Ornithologists argued about it for years. We now know what it actually is. The bird is using the ant as a chemical weapon against parasites. When many ant species feel threatened, they release formic acid as a defense. Research from the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology found that formic acid, at the concentrations a bird can deliver by pressing an ant against its feathers, has measurable toxic effects on feather lice and mites, the same parasites that dust bathing addresses physically. The bird is applying the ant's own defense chemistry to exactly the areas of its plumage where parasite populations are densest. And here's what makes this genuinely impressive. Studies found that birds doing this behavior actively selected ant species with higher formic acid production over species that produce less. The bird is not just grabbing the nearest ant, it's choosing the right tool for the job. So what you're watching, a bird crouching on an anthill in your backyard on a summer afternoon looking like it's completely lost the plot, is one of the most targeted, chemically specific, deliberately executed parasite control strategies documented in any backyard animal. It happens in plain sight, and almost nobody watching it knows what they are actually seeing. So the next time you watch a bird drop into your bird bath and thrash around like the water personally offended it, you know what you're actually looking at now. You are watching step 1 of a daily maintenance sequence that keeps a creature weighing less than a golf ball alive through cold nights, wet mornings, predator pressure, and a constant biological war against parasites it can't afford to lose. The splash is not the point. The splash is what makes everything that follows possible. Your bird bath is not garden decoration. It's the first step in a process that matters deeply to every bird that uses it. And the depth of the water, the texture of the basin, whether it's in the open or near cover, all of it shapes whether the birds in your yard can actually do what they came there to do safely. If you have a bird bath, I want to hear about it. Where is it? What birds use it most? Have you ever watched one sit and preen for a long time afterward and now realize what was actually happening? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want to keep going with the real science behind the things birds do in your yard, the behaviors hiding in plain sight that most people walk past every day, the next one is already waiting for you.